All right. Hello, everyone. It's Dr. Lane here. I wanted to create this little lecture to provide you with some greater understanding of how the DSM-5 works and how to diagnose. So what I'll be doing is I'll be sharing my screen and I'll open up the DSM-5 and we'll go through it a little bit to give you some better knowledge as to how to provide the diagnosis, how to write it, and um, and what some of the codes are and the information that you're finding in the DSM-5 and what it is. So what I'll do is I will share my screen now. So this is your textbook. This is the DSM-5, not your textbook. There's the textbook and then there's the DSM-5. I guess both are books, but this is on page Roman numeral 13, DSM-5 classification. So, and hopefully this information will help you on your case studies with the diagnosis portion. So as you've noted, diagnoses have two codes. Usually there's the one in front and then there's one in parentheses. As you can see here, we have the first one and then the one in parentheses. So as the DSM-5 describes it, these two codes are the ICD-9-CM and the ICD-10-CM. And I've actually just recently become aware that there is an ICD-11 that has come out, I think just this year in February. It's the World Health Organization that establishes these, and ICD stands for International Classification of Diseases. So, and the 11 it's in its 11th revision. So for purposes of this class, though, we won't use the 11th. Maybe by the time you get licensed and start practicing, that might be the code that you use. But for purposes of this course, use the 9 code as well as the 10 code. So as I stated again, this is the 9, this is the 10. So I want to give you an example and go into bipolar and related disorders. So page 123 here. So as you can see here on this page, we have bipolar 1 disorder. And then it goes through all the criteria of what the client should be experiencing, symptoms that the client should be experiencing in order for you to be able to classify their experience as bipolar 1 disorder. So as you'll note, right here at the very top, it says, for a diagnosis of bipolar 1 disorder, it is necessary to meet the following criteria for a manic episode. The manic episode may have been preceded by and may be followed by hypomanic or major depressive episodes. So right there, you understand that in order to diagnose as bipolar 1 disorder, the person has to have had a manic episode. And right here is the description of what the manic episode is. As you go further, you see hypomanic as well as major depressive episode. And as it states in the notes for both hypomanic and major, as you'll see here, note criteria A through F. So A through F of hypomanic episode are common in bipolar 1 disorder, but are not required for diagnosis of bipolar 1 disorder. So the client may or may not have a hypomanic episode, and it's the same with the major depressive episode. So it says that here in the notes as well. Oh, right, yeah, right here. They're common, but are not required to provide the diagnosis of bipolar 1 disorder. So now that we kind of know, and what you'll want to do is you'll be doing the reading on specific disorders. You'll want to read in the DSM-5 here in this book about the disorder, and make sure that you read all of it, because if you don't read everything, so this is all for bipolar 1 disorder. It goes on until what, page 133? So until it gets to bipolar 2. So you'll want to know all of this information. You'll want to read all of this because it will give you added insight for providing a diagnosis of bipolar 1 disorder. So now if we go into manic episode. So if you're saying that you think that the case study person has bipolar 1 disorder, then I want you to go into the DSM-5, and I will want you to go in and grab the criteria. So this is criteria A. It says it letters it out here. Then there's criteria B. Then there's criteria B 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then there's criteria C, then criteria D. So usually what it is you have to have all the lettered criteria in order to have the diagnosis. So you have to have A, B, C, and D. As you will see though, D has these sub-criteria. So during the period of mood disturbance and increased energy or activity, 3 or more of the following symptoms, 4 if the mood is only irritable, are present to a significant degree and represent a noticeable change from usual behavior. So the client has to have at least 3 of these in order for it to be classified as bipolar 1 disorder. If they only have 1, then maybe potentially it might not be bipolar 1 disorder. Well, it's not going to be bipolar 1 disorder. Maybe it's not even going to be in the bipolar category, but potentially there might be these other diagnoses for you to take a look at. So as you're writing your case studies, maybe you thought it was bipolar 1, but it's just not fitting that criteria. Maybe you'll look at these other ones. Like this one doesn't have sub-criteria, it just has lettered criteria. And as well as bipolar and related disorder due to another medical condition. So this one, you only want to take a look at that if you think it might be due to a medical condition or other specified bipolar and related disorders. Maybe you want to take a look at that. And again, as you will know, this other specified bipolar disorder related disorder has the revision 9 code and the revision 10 code right there, which is different from bipolar 1 disorder. If we go back up to bipolar 1 disorder, you'll see, oh, there's no codes there. So if you scroll down, that's because you don't just provide someone with the disorder of your bipolar 1 disorder. You have to go down here to these tables and figure out what other specifiers tie into that. So if you look here, there's bipolar 1 disorder, mild, moderate, severe with psychotic features, in partial remission, in full remission, or unspecified. So also here you'll see page numbers, and what you'll need to do is visit those page numbers to see if it fits that specifier. So as we'll go to page 154, since that's what mild, moderate, and severe reference us to. So here you'll see mild, moderate, and severe. So mild is defined as minimum symptoms criteria are met for a manic episode. And these, let me see. So there's two of these, and I'm trying to figure out what's the difference between the two of these. Basically, I think they say pretty much the same thing. So minimum symptom criteria are met for manic episode, or few, if any, symptoms in excess of those required to meet the diagnosis criteria are present. So mild means the minimum. Moderate means a little over the minimum, and severe means like all of them. Almost continual supervision is required in order to prevent physical harm, or the number of symptoms is substantial in excess of those required to make the diagnosis. So there's more criteria or symptoms that the person's experiencing than what is required for to diagnose. So that means if we go back up to bipolar 1 disorder, we go back up there, again, there's this criteria B that has subcriteria. So the minimum is 3. So if the person's experiencing 3 of these, and only 3, along with the other lettered criteria, you might say they have bipolar 1 disorder, and it might be mild. If they have 4 or 5, you might say it's moderate. And if they have all 7 of them, that's where you would specify as severe. So let's say the client had 5 of them. So we'd probably say it's probably moderate. So now we also need to decipher, was the current or most recent episode manic, or was the current or most recent episode depressed? And if it was manic, then these are the codes you would use for bipolar 1 disorder. If it was depressed, then these are the codes that you would use. And so also when you're writing out this when you're writing out what the diagnosis is, so we're saying, I'm going to share now my Word document. Okay, just making sure. So we're saying it's moderate, right? So, well, actually, let me do this. Hopefully you can still see. So let me. Hopefully you can see both. So we're saying it's moderate, right? So right here. So moderate, and let's say, yeah, we observed and the client expressed that the most recent was a manic episode. So the diagnosis would be bipolar 1 disorder, current episode manic, moderate. So 29642, and then F3112, bipolar 1 disorder, current. And I've observed it. You don't have to say current or most recent. You can just say current episode manic, and then comma moderate. And then that would be how you write out that diagnosis. So, and that's not it either. So that's the start of it. If you continue down, you'll see that there's also these other with anxious distress, with mixed features, with rapid cycling, with atypical features. So I guess what I said, actually, I said you want to read through all until page 33 to know what bipolar 1 disorder. Well, that's not true. You want to read everything, and then you also want to go to the page numbers that it references you to, so that you know all the options as well. So you might have, bipolar 1 disorder, current episode manic, moderate, with anxious distress. So these specifiers won't change the ICD code, but it is something that you'll want to consider as well. So also again too, when you're writing out your case studies, make sure that you're spelling it out really clear. And maybe this won't be your practice when you get into seeing clients. Maybe it is, and I would suggest it be. But look at every criteria and be able to match it with the case study and be able to evidence it by the case study or what the client has said to you. So again, let me share these two screens again. So in writing out this, so I think the client has this diagnosis. So I'm going to start with criteria a distinct period of abnormally and persistently elevated, expansive, or irritable mood, and abnormally, and so on and so forth. So continue that. And then I would say, as evidenced by the client saying, they have experienced irritability. Oh, there we go. Irritability almost every day for the past month and has had this experience off and on throughout their life. Because as it says, it needs to last for a week and most of the day, nearly every day. So as evidenced by, and then yeah, they fit that criteria. And that shows me that you know that they fit that criteria. Not like, oh, this sounds like bipolar, or oh, this sounds like major depressive disorder. No, let's really figure this out with the client. Let's really make sure that they're experiencing all these criteria so that we can give them a proper diagnosis. So that's A. Then you move on to B, and you know that B, you need to have 3 or more. So then you go in there and say, is it B1, B2, and then as evidenced by what you've seen in the case study. So that's a little bit more about the DSM-5 and how to use that and provide a diagnosis. I hope that was a little more clear to you and helpful to you as you continue to do your case studies. If you have any questions about them, please feel free to reach out to me via email or through the phone. Okay, good luck, and we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.